we will have a basic overview of the verb tense system in English. The verb tenses tell us about how the action relates to the flow of time. So two important things, the action and the time. There are three main verb tenses in English, the present, past, and future. I'm sure you are familiar with the verb tenses, and this is a kind of refreshing your memory. You know all about these verbs and the tenses and how to use them in the past and the future and the present. So this is something you have studied, you know, all, from secondary school and maybe in the first year, second year, and maybe only the first year. I think this is the first time you have English in the in second and third and the fourth years. The present, past, and future tenses are divided into four aspects: the simple, continuous, perfect, and perfect continuous. There are 12 major verb tenses that English learners should know. So, present simple, present continuous, also known as progressive, present perfect continuous, progressive, past simple, past continuous, progressive, past perfect continuous, progressive, future simple, future perfect, future continuous, progressive. You either use progressive or continuous, it's up to you. Future perfect continuous or progressive. English has only two ways of forming a tense from the verb alone, the past and the present. What does that mean? I mean, if you use the past, if you want to use the past, you can use only the verb, but you can change it by adding ed. You know this rule. And the present by, changing the verb according to the subject. You either, use the verb alone if you have, plural, the subject is plural as, or if you use I, for example, I go, we go. You don't, you use the infinitive. Infinitive verb means that the verb, you don't have to add anything to the verb. While in the past, if you use the past tense, you have to add ed if the verb is not irregular, irregular verbs. So in the past and the present, you only make changes on the verb itself, or use it as infinitive, as in when we talk about plural, when the subject is a plural. But when we use other tenses, like the continuous or the perfect, we have to add helping or auxiliary verbs, like have, be, or will. So let's start with simple tenses. Simple tenses usually refer to a single action. In general, simple tenses express facts and situations that existed in the past, exist in the present, or will exist in the future. So this is something for you to differentiate between the tenses. When can you use the simple tense? When you want to talk about facts. For example, let me give you an example. Like Iraq is located, or this is different. Iraq is a Middle Eastern country. This is a fact. So I'm using simple tense of verb to be. Or I drive home every day. This is something that it's a kind of something I do usually. It's a fact concerning me. Or a situation that existed in the past, the same verb, instead of saying I drive home every day when I talk about, the present, if I want to talk about the past, I say I drove home every day. The verb drive is irregular. That's why when it is in the past tense, it turns into different shape. Simple future, in the future you add will or shall or going to. So in the simple future, you say I will drive home later. Continuous tenses. We use continuous tenses to talk about unfinished events that is continuing. In the past continuous, I can say I was driving when you called. I was driving. We will talk about the rule when we use, the subject and then verb to be and the infinitive verb plus ing. That's the when we are talking about the past. The present, we use the subject and verb to be in the present, and then the infinitive verb plus ing. So I am driving now. Future continuous, in the future we use will. So we have the subject, I will, the subject, will, and the verb to be and the infinitive and ing. So I will be driving when you call. We come to perfect tenses. Perfect tenses express the idea that one event happens before another event. And the important thing for you to think about when we talk about perfect tenses, the adverbs. We usually use the verbs never, yet, and already when we use the perfect tenses. So we have also the present, past, and future perfect. The present perfect, I have driven that road. So we have the rule, the subject, and have or has. If I have the subject, I or we or they, I use have. But if I have she, it, he, I will use has. So I have driven that road, or she has driven that road, or he has driven that road. The past perfect, I had already driven that road in the past. Here, had, I always use had. Doesn't change when the subject is changed. So she had already driven that road in the past, or he, or we, or they, the same. We always use had. The future, when we are talking about the future, we always use will. So we have the subject and will. Also, will does not change with the change of the subject. I will have. After will, always remember, after will, we have infinitive. We don't add anything to the verb. So I will have driven. But after have, if you notice, whenever we use have or has or had, the verb is changed into what? You have to change the verb after have or has and had. So in the future perfect, we say I will have driven 200 miles by tomorrow. We move to perfect continuous tenses. Generally, perfect continuous tenses express duration or how long. It is a kind of, answering the question or about duration. Past continuous tenses usually include the adverbs for or since. mean, these are important things for you. You know, on the exam, you might be asked about the adverbs that are used with perfect continuous. So keep these in mind when you read. You know, when you come to read for the exam, pay attention to the adverbs, to the details that I put in bold. Present perfect continuous. I have been driving since this morning. So if I use she, I will change have into has. She has been driving since this morning. Past perfect continuous. I had been driving for 3 hours before I stopped to get gas. So if I use she or he or they, we will have the same auxiliary had because it is in the past. While in the present, we change the auxiliary have or has. We either use have or has according to the subject. The future perfect uh, progressive or continuous. I will have been driving for 5 hours by the time I arrive. Here also, we don't make changes because after will, the verb must be in the infinitive form. It cannot be changed. So since we are talking about adverbs, let me give you an example. The adverbs of time, because the adverbs of time are very important when we are talking about tenses. For example, the adverb ago. Ago is only used in the simple past, as in I left home 3 years ago. The adverb ago is never used in the present perfect. Certain adverbs occur with certain verb tenses. Often, when someone asks a question, you can respond in the same verb tense. So we have an exercise for you, and this is exercise also important in the exam. You might get the same question in the exam. So pay attention. So you have a question. Did you get enough sleep last night? And then you have between brackets simple past. So you have to use simple past in the answer. So yes, I slept well. So the verb slept is the irregular shape of the verb sleep. I slept well. So I used the simple past. The second question, do you shower every day? Also simple, but not past, but use the simple present. The answer, yes, I shower every day. If you remember, we talked about the simple present. We always talk about either facts or habits, something that I do every day. Number 3, are you going to study tonight? Use simple future. So with the future, you either use will or going to. So the answer, yes, I'm going to study tonight. You can say, I will study tonight. So either going to or will. Number 4, what were you doing when I called you last night? Past continuous. The answer, I was eating dinner when you called me last night. So you see the rule of past continuous. You use verb to be, but in the past tense. Either was or were. Were for plural and was for, either for singular or for I, we use was. I was eating dinner when you called me last night. Number 5, what are you doing right now? Present continuous. The answer, I am practicing verb tenses right now. So again, it depends on the subject. If I say what she was doing right now, so what she is doing right now, I'm asking about a person. The answer, she is practicing verb tenses. So you have to change the verb to be according to the subject. Or if I'm asking about him, what what is he doing right now? You say he is practicing verb tenses right now. Number 6, what will you be doing at midnight on New Year's Eve? Use future continuous. The answer, I will be celebrating the new year with my friends. Well, this time because I'm using will, the subject does not change anything in the sentence. So she will be celebrating, he will be, they will be celebrating the same. The same rule goes with everybody. Number 7, had you ever tried skiing before today? Use past perfect. Yes, I had already done it several times before. Again, because we are using the past, this is always had, no matter what the subject is, whether it's singular, plural, the same. Number 8, have you ever broken the law? Present perfect. No, the answer, I have never broken the law. Here, I can change the subject and ask, even in the question, because I'm asking about he, for example. I will not say I have to change have into has. Has he ever broken the law? And then the answer, no, he has never broken the law. So has and had, because we are talking about the present, we have to change has or have according to the subject. Number 9, will you have gotten married by the time you turn 30? Future perfect. No, I will not have gotten married by the time I turn 30. Again, because we are using the will remains the same. After will, we have to use have. We cannot use had. Number 10. How long had you been smoking before you quit? Past perfect continuous. Being used past perfect continuous in the answer. The answer, I had been smoking for 2 years before I quit. So, because I'm talking about the past, I always use had. And because it's continuous, so we use the verb to be in this shape. I had been. After been, we have to use a verb with ing. We will come to the rules of every tense. Number 11. How long have you been waiting for the bus? Use present perfect continuous. The answer, I have been waiting for the bus for 20 minutes. Again, if I ask how long has she been waiting for the bus, the answer, she has been waiting for the bus for 20 minutes. Number 12, how long will you have been working before you retire? Future perfect continuous. The answer, I will have been working for 30 years before I retire. So I will, because we are using will for future, it remains the same. And because we are talking about perfect, with perfect tenses, we always use have or has. But here we cannot use has because we have will. After will, we have to use the infinitive form of the verb or the auxiliary, helping verb. Now let's go to the rules. In this diagram, we have the rule of every tense. So the simple tense. In the past, the simple past, we have example. It snowed yesterday. So we only change the verb into the past form according to the verb. So snow is a regular verb. So we only add ed, while the verb drive, for example, is irregular. We change it into drove. Well, I drove yesterday, for example. So the same, the verb, the change uh, with the verbs, whether regular or regular, is the same no matter what the subject is. So with she, he, they, we, I, you make the same change to the verb. In the present, it snows every winter. We have simple present verb. Here, the verb depends on the subject. It, we use the S. If I say I drive every day, I drive, we use the infinitive verb. We don't add anything. It depends on the subject. Or they drive every day. We don't add the S, only with it, she, and he. I'm sure you are familiar with this. You have studied this before, and you probably use it when you talk English. In the future, it is going to snow tonight. So we either use going to or will. It will snow this winter. So after going to or after will, we always use the infinitive form of the verb. We don't add anything to the verb. So in both sentences, we use the verb snow without adding anything. So the rule, we have will or going to, be going to, plus simple present. Uh, with the continuous tense, if it's in the past, we say it was snowing when I drove to work. So we have either was or were, which is the past tense of the verb to be, plus a verb with ing. That's the continuous. The past in the past. In the present, the difference is that verb to be, uh, instead of using was or were, we use am when I'm talking about myself, or is when I'm using she, he, it, and are when I'm talking about the plural, they. So it is snowing now. Let's say he is driving now. He is driving now. So he or she, we use is, or it is. While I use I'm driving, or they are. When I'm using they, I have to change verb to be into are. They are driving now. When I'm using continuous in the future, it will be snowing by the time I get home. So I use will. After will, I have to use verb to be as infinitive because after will, the verb must be in the infinitive form plus verb with ing. So it will be snowing by the time I get home. It will be snowing. If I change the subject into she will be driving home. He will be driving home. I will be driving home. For example, if I'm talking about if I'm using a different sentence, so the same rule applies uh, to this to different sentences. We move to the perfect, the past perfect. It had already snowed before I left. The rule I used to have had, always had, because it is in the past. Plus past participle verb. So the past participle verb also, depends on the verb, if it's regular or irregular. For the verb snow, it's the same as in the past. You use ed. In the present, I have driven. I have driven in the snow many times. So though we have either have or has, depending on the subject. Whether it is she, if I'm using she has driven in the snow. He has driven in the snow, or they have driven in the snow. Plus past participle verb. So the snow driven, sorry, it's irregular. It's from the verb drive. The past participle here is different from the past. In the past, we say drove, while when we say the verb snow, it's the same. The past participle verb snow is the same as the past, and while when we use it in the past tense. In the future perfect, it will have snowed 6 inches by the end of the day. The rule we use have, will have, plus past participle verb. So always after have or had or has, we always use the past participle verb. The verb, as we said before, snow is the same as in the past. It's not irregular, but if we use the verb drive, we will say he will have driven. So it changes according to the verb. Uh, Perfect continuous. Well, let's move to the last one. In the past, it had been snowing for 2 days before it stopped. So the rule had been, because always when we are using the past form of the verb and the perfect continuous, we always use had. It had been, whether she, he, they, no matter what the subject is, it always had. And then been. When we are using continuous, you always use been. Had been plus verb with ing, and then you either use the adverb for or since. So the sentence it had been snowing for 2 days before it stopped, or since it stopped. When we talk about the present, it has been snowing all month long. We The rule has have according to the subject plus verb with ing, and also the adverbs either for or since. When we are talking about the future perfect continuous, we use will, have been plus verb and ing, and for and since as adverbs. The sentence, it will have been snowing for 3 days before by the time it stopped. So we use this rule. We have will, have been plus verb with ing and the adverb for or since. So you have to read this lecture for next time. You might get a quiz. I might give you a quiz. So you just read it again because we will talk about it again because we have so many tenses here. So you see it difficult or something that you are familiar with? Can you answer? Are you there?